we're going to get back to talk about your job and what you do in a while, but first, let's talk a little bit about Randy, the
Okay.
person, and how you got to this point. I know that um, um, it took some years to get
I,
appointed to
abs-
this
I
position. So
absolutely
tell
agree.
us about you, and are you from this area?
Well, I'm born and raised in Troy, New York. I attended high school in the Lansingburg School District, basically raised in the city of Troy and Lansingburg. I graduated from high school in 1966 with a Regents diploma. I attended and matriculated at Siena College, though I tried to go to Howard for a little point in time, but returned and graduated from Siena in 1970 with a BA in accounting. Um, I always knew that I was going to law school. It was just a matter of when.
Mm-hmm.
But for 3 years, I worked for a Big 8 accounting firm, Pete Mark Mitchell. After 3 years, I said I had enough. I really wanted to go to law school, and was able to get into Albany Law School. And I attended Albany Law School from 1973 to 1976, and I graduated in 1976. Upon graduation, and took the bar, passed the bar the following year. During that period of time, I was looking for a job, and I think two brave souls, Sam Whiting and Roger Fritz, took a chance with me. I handed out approximately 150 to 200 resumes of all the firms in this area,
Mm-hmm.
and many times I didn't even get an interview. But Roger and Sam got past all the problems of race, color. They had seen me working down in police court. They hired me. I worked as an associate with them. In about 4 or 5 years, we entered into a partnership, and I was in association in partnership with them up until 1987, when I left them and joined the New York State Department of Law, the Attorney General's office. I worked there for 7.5 years doing personal injury defense work for the state. And in August of '95, I got a call from Kevin Doyle, who was the acting director of the Capital Defender Office, and asked me if I would be interested in doing this work and heading up the Albany office. I interviewed with him within 2 days, and he hired me on the spot. And that's how I got there. So it seems like it was a fast track, but I've been in practice for 21 years.
Mm-hmm.
And of most of that time, I did criminal work in Albany, Schenectady, and Rensselaer County.
And you also had your own firm at one point.
That was within the law firm of Fritz Whiting and Treece.
Oh, okay.
I had a professional corporation doing some real estate work within that, but
Okay.
essentially it was with Roger Fritz and Sam Whiting. I practiced with them for 11.5 years, and basically I did criminal, matrimonial, some personal injury, some tax work, some business work. I did a little bit of everything during that period of time.
How difficult was it, Randy, for you as an African American, being in that particular profession in this area back in those days in the beginning when you first started?
I actually think it was quite difficult for all of us, even before I got to law school. When I graduated from high school, I remember my guidance counselor saying to me that the best that I will ever be is possibly a bookkeeper. And then the sting and the rebuke of that continued when I got to Siena. I took a standardized test, and it was interesting. The standardized test told me that I could only be a mortician, that I didn't have a chance of being a mathematician, which I was really wanting to be.
Mm-hmm.
I attended Siena College for 4 years by myself. I was the only black at the school, and it was extremely painful. If it was not for the support of my mother and my close friends, I don't think I would have finished through school. And I recall very vividly that one day I was up in the gym by myself shooting ball, and two of the cooks came up to me and told me how proud they were of me trying to get a degree and going through. And it was those type of things that pushed me on. When I started at Albany Law School in 1973, we had a class of 7 African Americans in that class, which was the largest ever at Albany Law School. At the end of the first year, we were down to 3, and by the time I graduated, there were 2, and one eventually graduated after that. I thought I was well treated at the school, though we knew we were different. I just thought that once I got the law degree, that the door was going to open up And that's when I was faced with the reality that that's not true. As I said before, I handed out about 150, maybe 200 resumes. I mailed them, and I actually went door to door. And my first interview wasn't actually an interview. I went to a firm, 8 o'clock in the morning, walked in with my new suit, new coat, new everything, printed resumes. I handed him the resume. He took and threw it in the garbage can. Then he reached in and took it out and told me to get out. His son saw what happened, pulled me back and just saying, well, we're not going to hire, try to soften it over. And that whole day, I walked up and down the streets of Troy and Albany handing it out. Of that, I only got 2 phone calls. So I thought it was an anomaly, but come to find out, even other African Americans who were coming in and trying to practice were experiencing the same thing. It was very difficult in trying to get clients, trying to get a client base, trying to live off of the few dollars that were coming in, trying to establish a business, trying to attract clients to me. I was getting discouraged often, but tried to persevere with it. Then there came a point in time that I was not making any money. Even though I was trying cases, doing well, I could not support myself, and I couldn't support my daughter in college unless I changed and left the practice. There were some racial slants that occurred during those 11 years while I was out there practicing. There weren't that many. A lot of things happened behind my back and not to my face. But I think I was accepted by my peers because they knew I worked hard, they knew I was a consummate professional, and I think that helped me through a lot of some of the downside of the practice. I have not made any money on it. I don't know if any black attorney in this area has really made any money at the practice of law.
I know that. Do we need to have a break, John? Okay, let's go for a break now.
Welcome back to News, Views, and Interviews. Sunday morning, March the 23rd. Gosh, now, can you believe it's the 23rd of March already?
Can't believe it at all.
Unbelievable. We're here this Sunday morning with our guest, Randy Treece. It's too formal. Randy.
Who's that? Randy
That's
Treece,
right.
yes.
Esquire, First Deputy Capitol Defender. Very interesting guest this morning.
Yeah, very much so. And we're talking a little bit about his job, his position as First Deputy Capitol Defender. We sort of went off into the difficulties that Randy had as an African American trying to get into the business of being a lawyer in the Albany area. When I was a young girl, I was raised in Montgomery, Alabama, and really proud to be from Montgomery, Alabama. And more so when I listened to people talk about some of the difficulties that they had here. Of course, there was racism all over, and there still is. But my doctor was a black man. My teachers were black people. The principal at my school was black. So I had that, I had someone to look up to. I knew that I could do any of that stuff if I wanted to. Whereas in some cities, what you find is that African American children don't have the same comfort zone, I guess, for lack of a better word, as I did in terms of knowing that I could be anything I wanted to be. What would you say to a young person now who aspired to go into the business of law?
I try to say as many positive things as I possibly can because, quite frankly, this has been a rewarding experience for me. Even though I had the downside of the practice, may not have made a lot of money, it has been rewarding in many regards. One, I now have a position that is an envy of a lot of attorneys. It's exciting. It has always been exciting. I teach at Albany Law School. I've used the degree to teach at junior college and at the college level. It has broadened my horizons. So I would say to anybody, especially young people, is that as long as you have a dream and you think about your dream, you can reach that dream. But if you don't dream, you can't go any further. And then you need to have discipline and perseverance. And if you have those three elements, those three qualities, I mean, you can do it. I tell people in all honesty, I'm not a scholar, though I believe in scholarship. I'm not brilliant, but I do believe in brilliant people, and I always strive to that. And as long as it's a matter of striving, you will get there. I just had to work hard, and there was nothing wrong with it. It didn't hurt me. There were some times I would be tired, but it got me there. So those who feel that maybe they're not at the same level as some other people, all you have to do is just look at yourself and just say that you can, and you can do it. There were some discouragement before. I would just say pass over those discouraging words. There are words of praise. You can find those within yourself. If you believe in yourself, you can do that. You can turn to people. I think one of the things that's real important, there were people who were always praising me and pushing me. I didn't see it. I was always looking for somebody with a degree that was going to do that, or somebody with stature. But it was actually people in the community. There were people in the church who were pushing me all along. Once you realize that there was always somebody there to support you and there is a foundation, you can do anything.
Mm-hmm. What are some of the activities that you involved in as an individual, other than your work? I know that the work is constant, and it's probably more hours a day than you would want it to be. However, there has to be that balance in there. So what are some of the community things that you're involved in that are encouraging to you?
I try to have a balance. Sometimes I wonder if I do, but I believe he who has much, more is expected, and I think a lot is expected of me, and I try to serve the community the best that I can. Over the past 21 years, I've probably been on about 20 boards in various segments of the community, but still in service. And presently, I'm on the board of directors at the Urban League, the executive vice chair. I'm one of the founders and now the president of the Capital District Black Bar Association. I work with the YMCA, with the Youth Basketball League. I'm on the board of trustees at Hudson Valley Community College. I'm on the board of directors of the New York Bar Foundation. I'm on several committees with the New York State Bar Association. I'm on the board of directors at the Albany County Bar Association. And I try to give as much as I possibly can where it's needed. And I think I give what I can, and I have a difficult time saying no. When people ask, I try to do it.
Yeah, that happens when you're involved. People see you, they ask, and you feel, oh well, I have to do this. I've got to help. I've got to do this thing to help out whomever is asking at the time. What do you do for fun? You have all these work and this volunteer
Yeah, with that
stuff.
busy schedule.
Yeah, do you go bowling or any of that kind of thing?
Well, my time is starting to get a little bit limited, but I'm a jazz aficionado, and I collect and I write a jazz column for Place of Jazz. I try to play basketball and tennis when I can. I try to work out when I can, and I'm a serious movie buff, and I like to see foreign and independent films. Try to read, try to write as much as I possibly can.
I noticed that in some of the information that I've collected about you, that you are a contributing writer to a Place for Jazz. And then my question was going to be, how do you get from law to jazz? But that's sort of that fun thing.
Well,
within you,
when
huh?
I was in grade school and high school, I played trumpet, and I played trumpet for about 13 years, and that's when I got introduced to jazz, and it just became a growing interest. And Butch Kahn had engaged me in a conversation one day about my interest, and I said, let me just send you something. And then I guess he liked my prose and said, why don't you send a few more? And I've been writing for almost 2 years now with them. And I look forward to it because it is a way of relaxing, to listen, size it up, try to find the right images, the right prose to put with it. And I'm really having fun with that.
Yeah, that's great. I can tell you're having fun because your face sort of, lights up in a different color when you talk about it.
Yeah. In fact, I think on my letterhead I have a picture of a musical cymbal or a saxophone.
You've done some other writing too. I noticed that you co-authored, is it of crime? The Crime on a Sesame Seed Bun.
Yes. Yeah. That's that's a very interesting project that I got involved in recently. There were two sisters in Troy, Ann Evan Cohn and Kathy Pochak, who had a science project in which children were learning forensic science in a criminal case. So I called them and sat down with them and asked them, can we expand this to teaching the kids about their Bill of Rights and about the court system, and maybe we can even have a trial. And after about 4 or 5 months of drafting whatever, from January 6th to January 10th, we went to the Turnpike Elementary School, and the kids actually investigated a real case dealing with Ronald McDonald being assaulted and Burger King being the defendant. So we went through from them learning how to investigate the forensic science, learning how to use a microscope, learning about the Bill of Rights, how to make a presentation in court, and then the last day we actually had a trial in which Burger King was tried as the defendant, Ronald McDonald was the complainant, and the fifth graders assisted the attorneys. And we went through an actual trial, and it was absolutely great.
Sounds like it was fun.
Right now, it's being evaluated as an educational tool throughout the state, and once we get that evaluation together, we'll have it into a formal handbook, and we'll disseminate it throughout the state. And I see it as a worthwhile project. I had as much fun as the kids did.
Yeah, sounds like fun. Sounds like something I would have loved.
Gee, I wish I was in school again.
Well, you are, aren't you, John?
Well, that's true, but back at that age.
Oh, okay. That would be nice for most of us. We're always learning, though.
That's right.
Yeah. I know, let me see, about a week ago, my stepson came up to, he's contemplating applying to Albany Law School. And you did a presentation there. Is that something that you do on a regular basis as a professor at Albany Law School, is give a presentation to people who are interested in coming into the college?
I always thought that it was my responsibility to swell our ranks within the profession and here locally. When you go south, as you say, you see persons of color in the professions, and you don't see as many here. So I try to promote in every venue I possibly can, either on a college campus or in high school. And on occasion, I get invited back to Albany Law School to talk about the profession. But if you catch me on the street, what are you thinking about doing? Are you thinking about being interested in the law? Here are some things you need to get going, to get ready, because it's very competitive. Get in. I want to see you in there. Call me. Let's talk about it. And it was a couple weeks ago that I talked about the struggle of black lawyers, but their successes. And I was really surprised in my research, which I should have done before, that there were attorneys of color, a couple of them being very successful. James Matthew, who was the first black to graduate from Albany Law School in 1870, has been the first and only judge of color. Warren Gibson practiced in Troy for a very short period of time, and there was another attorney by the name of Fred Chu who didn't know that. But I wanted to share with them the struggles, the travails, but also some of the high moments of being an attorney of color, to press them on, because they can. And I want to see some of our young people involved in the law, because it is a wonderful profession. There are, again, some downsides to it, but I've learned so much. I've been so engaged in life because of what I do.
There's some downsides to every profession, so you just have to take that positive from whatever it is you determine that you want to do.
I was bitter there for a while until I had a conversation with Peter Pryor, and Peter saying, it's time for you to move on to other things. And it was just that conversation that broke me from my funk and got me back focusing on what I have to do, and that is to be the best I possibly can be, and using all the abilities God gave me.
Absolutely. Do we need a break, John? Not yet?
A couple more minutes.
Couple of more minutes. In a couple of more minutes, you mentioned earlier that you had gone to Brown, and you only went there for a couple of minutes. Howard.
To Howard,
I'm
yes.
sorry, I said Brown.
Yeah.
Howard. And you only went there for a little while. Was that because it was away from Albany?
What happened
Albany
was,
area?
which is I wanted to go away to school. My mother was sick, so I stayed at Siena. I had a very disappointing year my first year. I was very unhappy being, again, the only person of color there. I wasn't ready for that struggle. So I transferred to Howard, and when I got to Howard, they wanted me to start over again as a freshman, so I resigned to that. But what happened was my student loan fell through, and I couldn't find a job, and I'm already down there a month and a half. So we called back to Siena, and the president allowed me to come back in, even though I was a month and a half late, and I returned. And so the consolation of coming back, my mother helped me buy a car so that I would be able to get around a little bit more.
Yeah.
But I would have loved it at Howard. I was really turned on by seeing people of color doing well in every facet. I was just enraptured with Washington, D.C. I think that's a great place to be.
Yeah, it is. It is a wonderful place. We need to go for a break now.
Time to pay the bills.
Okay.
Welcome back to News, Views, and Interviews for a Sunday morning. Almost the whole month of March has just gone right on by. This is John Kowalski in for Jill Condon this morning, along with our co-host, Nell Stokes-Holmes. Almost couldn't get your name out there this morning. I don't know why. And
tongue, huh?
yeah, that's right. The foot is in the mouth. And our guest this morning is Randy Treece, Esquire, First Deputy Capitol Defender. And we have an action-packed segment coming up.
Yes, we do. We've been talking a lot about Randy, and I know he wants to stop talking about himself, but some
That's for
things,
sure.
some things we just wanted to know, and we thought maybe our listening audience wanted to know too. We're going to go back to talking about his work as First Deputy Capitol Defender, and I'll start this segment off by saying that personally, I don't believe in the death penalty. I don't think that it's up to any individual to decide on whose life to take. But I know that there are laws, and we have the death penalty now in New York State, and that's why your job is available to you. Talk a bit about the death penalty itself and about how difficult it is to try a case, and those kinds of issues.
Well, the death penalty is present in 39 states within the United States. New York has always had a death penalty right from its inception up until Governor Carey and Governor Cuomo were vetoing bills that would have brought it in line with the constitutional requirements of Gregg versus Georgia. In 1995, New York became the 39th state to have the death penalty. I should tell you the Capitol Defender Office is not anti-death penalty. We're not an agency fighting the death penalty. We're not a lobbying organization. We're there solely for the purpose of providing quality representation, zealous representation to a person who is so charged. I should also tell you this, though. Even though the majority of people have stated in various polls that they want the death penalty, when you ask the next question and just oppose, if you know that there is a possibility of life without parole and it means exactly that, how do you feel? And most of the people at that point state that they would prefer life without parole rather than seek death. When you take and add on and couple that there would be restitution to the family during this period of time in life without parole, it is overwhelming that people would rather have that form of punishment rather than deal with the death penalty. We're not quite there with the restitution, but there is the option of the choice for a jury of life without parole or the death penalty if a person is convicted of murder in the first degree. I have to tell you that this is probably the most serious litigation that I've been involved in. It's probably the most complicated litigation I've been involved in because, one, it implicates two constitutions, the United States Constitution and the state constitution. There's a huge body of law with almost every permutation, every nuance of the case being reviewed in a constitutional specter. So we are quite aware of that, and we have to deal with that. These cases are investigated every point, every T is crossed, every I is dotted, and in that regard, it's very time-consuming and demanding. And just knowing that you have not somebody's liberty in your hands, but someone's life in your hand, has a really compelling force on us doing the best that we possibly can. No one wants to be visited with losing a capital case and knowing that your client is facing the loss of their life. And so we work very hard in our office. We practice by consensus, which means is that before I practice, I, as the attorney, made the decisions for my client. Now, several attorneys make the decisions so that we are making the right decision, and we analyze everything. It is a motion practice, a very heavy motion practice, in which constitutional law is discussed very thoroughly, that we provide all of this to the court so that they make the right decision. And so every moment is filled with either investigation, analysis, or writing, and I do a lot of writing. I can tell you that even though we don't condone what our clients do if they are guilty, there does become some empathy with our clients, because just the natural proximity to people and their struggle in life, you develop some empathy. And that doesn't mean that, again, we condone and we pat them on the back what they did. But what we do, you're entitled to the best representation you can possibly get. We have the best people that can do that, and we're going to afford that to you. And that's exactly what we do. And I can tell you that we work night and day. We work weekends whenever there's a calling. In the region that I have 22 counties, from Sullivan, Dutchess County, up to the Canadian border. Many times we have to get in our car, run to a jurisdiction to see whether or not that murder charge is going to be elevated or not. And if it is elevated, we jump right in and we do what is expected of a lawyer, and that's to do their best, do a thorough job, advocate to get the best result for our client. And if there is no proof there, prove it. And if they do prove it, it's up to us to make the appeal to the jury that there is a choice to death, there is the sanctity of life, and we appeal to you to give our client, spare his life. And in that process, which is the penalty phase, a lot of things are brought in. Background, multi-generational background, or other things that you normally wouldn't see or would even consider are now discussed, because mitigation of the death penalty is anything that has a bearing on background, state of mind, or anything a jury could weigh to spare somebody's life.
You know, everything, most things has a cost. It ends in dollars and cents. In terms of taking a person's life and giving them life without parole, what's the cost variation in there?
We know from other jurisdictions that the cost of seeking death is extremely expensive. On an average, of the 37, 38 other states that had the death penalty, to incarcerate somebody for the balance of their life is roughly $500,000. But from the point of arresting somebody to the point that they're taken to death, in those jurisdictions in which it's taken place, the amount has varied from $2.3 million to up to $3.4 million. It is really interesting that California has the most people on death row, and in 10 years they have only executed approximately 10 people, and they've spent almost $400 million of the process of prosecuting, going through the appeal process, housing them, and taking at least those 10 people and the other people on death row to the point where they're at. $400 million. I say that there is a better policy decision that life without parole, cut that. If you cut out all of that rest of that, we are not making the strain on our financial budget. Will New York be visited with similar costs? I think that they will be. As high, I'm not sure, but I think that it's going to be within the millions of dollars. And just knowing from the cases that we've had, knowing the resources that the prosecutors used and the resources that we have expended have been significant.
And the state has to spend that amount of money in order to make sure that that person gets due process.
In some jurisdictions, they don't spend the type of money that we would expect in order to receive the defense that is required. And we've heard horror stories that in the South, like in Alabama and South Carolina, attorneys paid $1,500, $2,000 to handle a capital case. You get no representation under that. We know that an attorney taking a capital case is going to expend at least 1,500 to 2,000 hours. Even if he was getting paid $1 an hour, it tells you that's $2,000. So you know that there's going to be money spent. Experts don't come cheaply.
Right.
Investigation doesn't come cheaply. And even on the prosecution side, they have to spend exorbitant amounts of money. New York State wanted to make sure that they don't have a problem with their capital cases, said we're going to pay the money up front by having a capital defender office, providing them with the resources so that those charged are going to have solid representation. And New York has done that so far.
The appeal process, well, not the appeal process.
The time, this is what I'm wondering. How long, say from the time they're arrested, if it's going to be a death penalty case, how long, what's the longest it could run out? Obviously, the longer, the more money.
Well, again, there is an average that people on death row are on there for at least 7.5 to 10 years. There are people on death row who have been there 15 and as high as 21 years. The U.S. Congress has taken away from criminal litigants the federal habeas corpus route and have closed that down. And that is going to close down the number of appeals and the amount of time that would take place after there's been a conviction. Some people are speculating that New York's first person who will be on death row and will be executed, if it does happen in New York, may happen within 7 years. Some believe 15 years or 21 years because of all the dynamics that are going to take place. New Jersey, that has had a death penalty, it took almost approximately 10 years before they had their first execution. Connecticut has the death penalty, and as my understanding, they have not executed anybody. There's just so many variables that play that it's hard to say.
So it depends from state to state then?
State to state and the various circumstances that are implicated.
And how do we know if a person if the person that has been accused of the crime actually did it? And what if we kill that person and find out that a few years later that someone else actually did that crime? It's like death is so permanent. It just seems it's difficult for me to fathom, first of all, taking the life of a person.
The U.S. Supreme Court has said repeatedly that death is different from any other type of case, criminal case, or any other type of litigation. And because of that, it requires a heightened due process to make sure that if we are going to convict, we are convicting the right person. But you should know that New York has the ignominious history of executing at least 8 people who have been found innocent afterwards. And there have been, within 1963 up until present, at least 53 murder cases that have been overturned because of miscarriage. And then when you take and amplify this over 39 states, you can see that the risk of executing the wrong person is great. I was really taken by a black man in the South who had 4 times been taken and strapped into the gurney to have his life taken. And in each time he was spared because of the pellet route. And eventually, one of the police officers who was present during the incident in which another police officer lost his life told a true story that how it started. This man was eventually released, but 4 times he was strapped there half an hour from losing his life. It has probably happened more times than we want. Do we want that on our conscience that 8 people within the state over the period of time that New York has had the death penalty have been executed and should not have been? We almost had 53 near deaths, but they were resolved before that. I don't think that we really want that on our conscience. I don't think the public really wants it on their conscience.
And now it's time to go for a break.
Welcome back to News, Views, and Interviews on WROW Sunday morning, March the 23rd. John Kowalski in for Joe Condon this morning, but Nell Stokes-Holmes, Joe will be back next week. I'm getting all excited thinking about Joe. I miss him.
Yeah,
He's been out for a couple of
I'm
weeks.
happy he'll be back next week.
Yes, he will. We have quite an interesting guest and topic this morning.
Yeah, we're talking to Randolph.
Here we go, being formal.
Randolph.
It's Sunday morning, you know.
Sunday morning. And this is Randy Treece.
There you go.
He's the first deputy Capitol Defender, and we're talking about his work and making sure that those people who are what's the word? Charged with murder get a fair and equitable process.
That's correct.
Okay, I got it out. I know that you've tried some cases before, and you want to talk a little bit about the difficulty in trying a case.
Well, one of the things that people think that it falls into place, that you can grab a case and go up there and talk in mellifluous tones and give a brilliant cross-examination, but the practice of law is what it is. It's a practice. It comes with experience. There are books you can study, but it comes through learning the process, and it is an art. The more that you experience, the better you get, or at least you should. A trial really devotes a lot of resources from yourself. It requires you to be persuasive, to be articulate. It also requires perseverance because you have to know your facts. You have to study your facts. You have to have almost a sense of wit and insight into people to be able to determine what facts and how those facts should come out. So it calls upon a lot of things, but the most demanding thing is time. You have to put in your time. I would say an average felony trial, if you were doing it correctly, you're putting in 200-300 hours preparing and getting ready. During that period of time that you're trying a case, it calls for everything. I recall I tried a case in '83 in which it was a 6-week trial. I lost 12 pounds. I suffered from a loss of sleep, but I felt that I had to give my client everything that I had. Most good trial lawyers give themselves, and that is something that the public doesn't see. You just can't go up there and talk about and pull things out of the sky. It has to be prepared, and it has to be practiced, and that's one of the things that I teach in my trial tactics. You know, it just doesn't come to you out of the ozone.
It comes factual too.
And you have to work at it, and you have to work at the art of persuasion. I would say if you talk to any trial lawyer, the first thing they say that if you're not committed to work, you shouldn't be doing this. It does require some type of audacity to be able to stand up to the might of government and to litigate a case. The resources that the defense have generally do not match what the prosecution has. And because of that, you have to be more resilient, and you have to call more upon your wit and greater analysis. And that's not to say that prosecutors don't go through the same thing. They do, but it's just not something you walk in just like on TV. But it takes years of experience to get to the point where you can try a case and try it ably. I enjoy it, but it takes its toll on me. Most attorneys, is almost like going up a hill, and then you hit a plateau or an apex, and you drop after the verdict. And everybody I talk to says that it just calls so much, and then it's like a release, and then you're back up doing it again. Some people like that kind of Ferris wheel
yeah, it's kind of up and down kind of life. I'm thinking in 1975, I ran for the Albany School Board, and that was like a great big high for me, getting up to the point of election. But election night, I crashed, and I was out. I was out of work for like 3 days. I couldn't get up. So is it sort of like that?
It's very much like that. I think most attorneys, if they win a case, they're suffering from exhilaration, and that causes you to crash. If you lose, you become despondent, it causes you to crash. those who've done it over and over again recover a lot quicker than maybe the younger attorneys, but it takes a lot. And, you know, a lot of mental exercise takes energy from you, and that's exactly what we do. And to stand before 12 people is not an easy thing to do, and to make an appeal to either get a conviction or to spare somebody's liberty or to spare their life. These are really demanding chores and tasks, and there is an emotional consequence to it. We have talked to capital lawyers in other jurisdictions who have done this over a while, and you can see the heavy burden that they have borne over the years. You can see it in their face, you can see it in the way they talk.
And the bags under their eyes.
And you have to find a way to manage that. Most trial lawyers don't manage it very well. I mean, they just work all the time because they always want to be good.
Now, when it's like, does it get any easier? So I know after the first one, it's probably very difficult to bounce back. But as the years go on, does it get any easier to bounce back?
I find it easier to bounce back. Some of them you may take harder than others depending on what happens. But that comes with experience, and it just comes with age and wisdom that, you know, you can't sulk. It's time for the next client. It's time to get ready for the next obligation. Get yourself up as soon as you can and get going. You don't have time to lament and you know, pat yourself on the back and say, woe is me. You have to get back into it. I will tell you the first time I lost the case, though, I thought it was a whole week before I really recovered. The next time it was a little shorter period of time. But also the same thing when I win. I mean, I got to go lay down. I mean, it's just such an emotional drain at that point in time. There were very few attorneys that I've talked to who have not had that kind of experience, but it does get more manageable as you get older. And some attorneys just like that, high and low.
What do you see in the future for Randy Treece, Esquire, in terms of moving along in your life?
What I want is a continued challenge. I want to go to the next level, no matter what that is. I mean, I make no secret of the fact that I would like to serve on the bench and to be a jurist and to understand and serve in that role. But if it doesn't happen, that doesn't mean that I'm going to be stopped in my tracks. I would like to see and deal with other aspects of the law, and I want to serve. It may come in another role. I plan on doing this for a while, and but who knows how long I'm going to do it. Who knows? Who knows? But I haven't said that this is the apex for my life. I want to keep reaching, because I might reach the point where I really want to be, and hopefully that would be to sit on a bench.
Yeah, I wondered about that. I just thought of that as you were talking about the difficulties of doing the trial. I asked before about advice for a young person who might be considering going into the profession of law. For a person who's already in that profession, what encouragement would you give them when they're sometimes at the point of feeling kind of low about, you know, what it is they're doing?
The lesson I learned after 21 years is patience. I was getting very discouraged because monetarily I wasn't making the money I thought I should with the number of years I was serving and with the success I was having in trial work. I didn't think I had reached the stature where I should have been, or at least I thought it. But in time, if you continually do good work and people see it, you will be rewarded. Our problem, attorneys of color have had, is that we've become ghettoized, and we've been finding employment in government and staying in government, either in policy or with the legislature or whatever, and not getting out where the real power is in the profession, that's practicing in the firms. And until you're willing to make and take the risk to go into practice, you will never know that. And the profession, those who are making the decisions as to who advances and who doesn't, or who's going to get what, will not see you. And so I suggest to young lawyers that don't get comfortable just having a job. You know, you went in to practice law, or at least to learn the law. You should still try to practice. And then once you get in practice and find out how difficult the business of the practice is and the demands of the profession, should not be discouraged, because there is going to come a reward. I'm a prime example of that, because I thought that maybe I had plateaued out, but other people were paying attention and said Randy was doing good work. Got some appointment to some committees. They saw that I was doing good work. And then lo and behold, what happens? Somebody calls me and say, how would you like to be first deputy capital defender, head up the office, dealing probably with one of the most challenging issues facing an attorney in any state, but particularly this state, and it's exciting and rewarding. I got a chance to teach at the law school. I got a chance to do other things with my law degree. It's a premium degree. We need to be a little patient to see that those rewards come. And I think those who wait, the benefit will be there.
Mm-hmm. What if our time is running out?
Well, I've got a couple of more minutes as we wind down.
Oh, my goodness.
It's a fast hour.
It's a fast hour. It's a fast hour.
It's been a fun hour.
Yeah, we're just going to wrap it up and say thank you so much for sharing your time and your insights with us.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
It's been a pleasure. I have questions I've always wanted to ask you, and I get to ask them on radio.
Well, thank you.
It's been great working with you, John.
I was glad to be here.
I'll be so happy to have Joe back next week.
He'll be here with his smile.
With his smile and his wonderful radio voice.
That's right.
In closing, as always, we say yesterday is history. Tomorrow is a mystery. Today is a gift. That's why we call it the present. Good day.
You've been listening to News, Views, and Interviews. Our guest this week has been Randy Treece, Esquire, First Deputy Capital Defender. If you have questions or comments about this week's program, drop us a line. Send it to 6 Johnson Road, Latham, New York, 12110. This program pre-recorded.